a neuromarketing company, and what makes us very unique is that we have invented a dry wireless EEG capability that enables us to evaluate how people respond to all different kinds of marketing stimuli with respect to their brain waves, looking at their visceral reaction, positive and negative emotion on a moment-by-moment basis, as well as cognitive engagement. At this conference, we're going to be speaking about a number of topics. We're offering a primer twice during the conference with respect to neuroscience and how it's applied to market research. We're also speaking with two of our clients. We're speaking with Microsoft with regards to a study that we did that was very groundbreaking, looking at the performance of advertising in context of TV versus in a video game like the Xbox game, and what the difference is between how advertising performs in these different media. We're also presenting tomorrow with our client Post Cereals on an advertising testing case with our partner Millward Brown, and there we're looking at how you can evaluate an ad not just from the conscious response that people give with survey metrics, state-of-the-art survey evaluation, but how you can also correlate what people say with how they're reacting viscerally and look for where there's convergence and where there's potentially divergence. And the other thing that we're doing at this conference, which is very exciting for us, is that we're introducing our new headset. This is really something I'd like to show you. This is the new EmSense 24, and I need to line it up. I can do that by making sure that this line is in line with my nose. And these are actually grounding devices that become like little earrings for me. And what's very unique about our EEG technology is that it is dry and it is wireless, which means that we can use this headset all over the world in all different kinds of contexts. The reason we designed this new headset that has 24 sensors instead of our basic headset, which has 2, is that by having new clusters of contacts, we're able to reduce the noise to signal ratio so that we get really good solid data, particularly in the area when people are moving. So when you're doing research like an in-store study or a study where somebody's actually physically using a product and there's a lot of motion, we're able to get a very strong signal. And we're also able with this new headset to pick up some brainwave signals in various parts of the brain that are also of interest to us, like the back of the head. The thing that was enormously breakthrough with this is that we have sensors that can sense through the hair, which is something that's never been seen before. So we're very excited about the kind of things that we're able to do with this. One of the things that we are presenting today with our partner Microsoft, our client Microsoft, has to do with a study where we looked at the performance of advertising on television, a standard television ad, versus how that ad performs when it's in an Xbox presentation and the consumer has the ability to interact with that ad. And in that case, in the Xbox situation, the average consumer spends 5 minutes interacting, actually getting involved behaviorally with the advertising. And so there's so much more engagement. There's a very positive and much more intense emotional response, much stronger cognition, meaning that there's active thinking going on because you're actually engaging with that ad in a physical as well as a mental way. And so it became a very nice way for Microsoft to understand what is that potential upside that they can offer their advertisers when they can provide that kind of milieu. It was an in-game ad compared to a television ad. This was actually more of a pick a window where you could go into an ad. It wasn't so much baked into the game. It was a cleaner comparison versus television advertising because it was very consciously advertising as opposed to something else we'd like to test, which is much more seamlessly integrated into the game.
Did I have to interact with the ad?
No, totally voluntary. But we found that a great majority did interact with the ad, and when they did, they spent on average 5 minutes. Because context, we find, makes such a critical difference in how people respond to marketing stimuli. That is one of the greatest overarching findings that we have working in neuromarketing. And so when you are in the mood to interact, when you are in the psychological mode to interact, you're playing a game, you're in a playful kind of mood. Again, this was an ad that was very targeted to this audience. It lent itself to being played with as well. You were feeling like playing. The ad spoke to you in terms of the topic and the graphic option, and so it was an invitation to get involved in that context. Context is king. They had our original EmSense headset on, and we're able to correlate how people are reacting on a second-by-second basis. And we have a point of view camera built in, so we know where people are looking with how they're responding, and we can correlate that information. This can tell you whether you're two primary things. Are you mentally engaging with the stimuli over time on a moment-by-moment basis, and are you having a positive or negative visceral reaction also on a moment-by-moment basis? Can distinguish between positive and negative. It does that by looking at the patterns of the brain waves, and then we put them through proprietary algorithms. The post example is really a classic case of needing to understand whether the brand is coming through in an ad and whether people are really connecting to the primary message. It also helps understand that sometimes you can have a creative device, a creative story that is charming to a lot of people, funny to a lot of people, but sometimes can either upstage the brand or just not properly connect to the brand. And in this case, it was one that we did with Millward Brown, and Millward Brown had their measures of evaluation, and we also had our measures of evaluation, and it enabled us, just like when a doctor looks at all the tests of a patient, enabled us to take a step back and look at the performance of the ad from all different angles and really understand what the issues and opportunities were. In this case, there was a strategic insight that came out of it that had to do with how people reacted to the brand itself when the brand talked about its key consumer benefits, as opposed to embedding those benefits into a greater creative architecture that was more intended for brand imagery, to upgrade the brand to be a little bit more hip, a little bit more modern. And the irony, it's almost like the story of the Wizard of Oz. You know, it's like you had it there all the time. When in this case, shredded wheat talks about how wholesome it is and how good for you it is and how it's only one ingredient. You could see that the respondents had such a positive visceral reaction to that. So from that learning, Post leveraged that insight and restaged the brand to be truer to what its heritage was and its core essence, and also made it part of an umbrella theme for across a number of brands with regards to the whole health message. So in this case, the test started out on a quest to understand why the ad did not perform like it was expected to in the marketplace. It was actually very interesting. Very funny, hip ad, very edgy. When it first came out, the marketing media embraced it. There was a lot of buzz, there was a lot of the industry loved it. They said, this is fresh, this is hilariously funny, and we're rooting for it. But the way the industry reacts and the way consumers react, we know is not always the same. And so by doing this study, retrospectively, it really helped Post understand where the disconnect was between the industry and the target, and take that learning and really propel the brand. And the brand had been declining, and this new program that they developed coming out of this research stemmed that decline. The disconnect had to do with the creative approach, talking about we put the no in innovation. It was a very humorous approach about the brand, as opposed to straight on being very sure-footed in explaining what the main idea and the benefit was of this brand.
Has progress taken us to a better place? I'd say it's taken us for a ride. Honestly, what thanks do we owe progress? We're up to our necks in landfill and down to the wire in resources, and climate change is out to get us. That's why progress plays no role inside Post shredded wheat. Here, we put the no in innovation. Post original shredded wheat is still just the one simple, honest ingredient which naturally comes with vitamins, minerals, and fiber. All we did was make it spoon-sized. Did we go too far?
What you had was almost a tale of two commercials. You had the first half of the commercial that really confused people, but it also was polarizing. So you had a segment of consumers that thought it was really funny and maybe got it and enjoyed it, just like the media industry or the marketing industry enjoyed it. But then you had your basic middle American consumer who didn't quite get what the analogy was, or they weren't quite in on the joke, but really responded to a very beneficial message about this is a product. Post shredded wheat is the most honest cereal you can possibly get. It's a one ingredient, it's wholesome, it doesn't have a lot of additives, it's really good for you. And when you tell your story as a brand and you have a relevant thing to say, it's very emotionally engaging to people in a positive way. It was lining the brand up with its target and communicating what it was really all about. And this is going to sound almost anathema to social media conventions, but you can have positive buzz in the social media world. You can have people going online and following certain kinds of advertising, but that doesn't necessarily correlate to the majority of the target and how they're going to respond behaviorally. So the real key lesson is that you need to have checks and balances. You need to do your homework, and you need to be able to make sure that your strategy for a given brand ties to the brand personality and the execution of that brand, so that it's ultimately very motivating. Because it was delicious advertising from the standpoint of people, sophisticated people enjoying the humor in it, but it wasn't necessarily motivating to the target.
So my last question, have you introduced Post to Microsoft? Since Microsoft has this amazingly effective platform that engages consumers.
I think that's a wonderful idea, to introduce Post to Microsoft.